back to Pine Tree State Restorations and the Shortwave Radio Shootout. Now, let's talk about shortwave. Why shortwave? Well, shortwave has every country in the world besides ours transmits on shortwave frequencies. There's tons of pirate radio, secret radio frequencies, all kinds of cool stuff to listen to on shortwave. You're missing out if you don't have a shortwave radio. Now, best radio to get is not these new ones. These new Eatons and these Grundigs and Catos and all these cheap $20, $30 CC Crane radios. These hand crank dynamo generator radios. Stay away from all that. That's all garbage. You don't want any of it. Go on eBay and find yourself a good analog receiver like this one right here, like this Sony 8000, okay? Or this Real Tone. This is a simple one. There's not much to this Real Tone, okay? And we'll talk about that. But the features you want to do on these radios is it's nice to have a few things. 1, analog. 2, dial light. You need a dial light. And 3, nice to have a meter, a tuning meter. All right? So you're going to want the light, the tuning meter, and an analog dial. And you want to be able to go down to at least 4 megahertz and on up to at least a minimum of 22 megahertz, preferably 32 megahertz. Okay. Watch out for radios that have the police band on it, because usually, I'll give you an example like this one here. Okay, it's got the air, FM, AM shortwave, but the shortwave only goes down to about 6 megahertz and only goes up to, on this one, I think it goes up to about, let's see what we got here. Yeah, 12 megahertz. So that's more of a police band radio, VHF, shortwave, FM, air band radio. You don't want that. You want a radio that has multiple shortwave bands that goes down to a minimum of 4 megahertz and preferably up to 32 megahertz or even better, 50 megahertz. All right. And you want to go on eBay and you want to buy one. Now, you got to be very careful on eBay buying radios or you will get burned to a crisp. What I mean by that is when you look at a radio for sale on eBay, study the pictures very, very carefully. Study the condition. Study the battery box. Ask questions. Do all the controls work? Does the dial move? Does the dial light work? Does the meter work? Ask questions, okay? If you think it's a good deal and you want to buy it, then do a little research on the radio online, discover how good of a receiver it is. Like this Sony is a super, super, super good receiver. It has flywheel tuning and it's super sensitive. It is a great radio. This one here would be a good one if you wanted to buy that. This Real Tone here, this one is more of your basic shortwave radio, okay? It goes down to 4. It actually goes down to 1.6 to 4.5 and then 3.8 to 12. So that's decent. AM, FM, 4 band. It's not as sensitive as the Sony or maybe even the Real Tone, but this particular radio, this Real Tone here, is one of their economy models back in the day. It is a good radio, runs on 4C batteries, and that's another thing. You want a radio that is battery operated for sure, because when the power goes out or things happen in the world and you have no power, you need that radio to work on battery power. It's a must-have. So when you're buying the radios, make sure that you ask a lot of questions and do the research on your radio and see how good it is. Another thing you might want to consider is single sideband on your radio. A lot of these radios, including these 3 right here, do not have single sideband, which the ham radio operators use SSB all the time. So if you want a fully decked out shortwave radio, analog, you want to also add single sideband to it as well. And that'll have a BFO knob where you can adjust it so you can listen to them. I might do another segment on that. But eBay is a good source for these radios. If you know how to fix them, of course, you can get them cheap like me and fix them and get a really good deal. Or just pay the price for a quality unit and be done with it. Your life could depend on it. These radios have a million and one uses, and they're a must have in every home. I can't express enough how much information you can get on shortwave radio. So, with that being said, making sure you buy the right radio, the top four things I consider a must have in an analog radio. This is analog, not digital. You want to stay away from digital. Is a light, because sometimes at night you'll need that light to see what's going on, especially if the power goes out. See what you're tuning. A tuning meter, preferably. You're going to want an analog, that's 3. Maybe sideband if you want that, and it has to run on batteries. All right. Dual power is fine. Some of these don't run on dual power, some are just batteries. I think these 3 will run on plug-in. But you want to have those things at a bare minimum. Okay? Don't mess around, like I said, with these new crappy radios that they make. Eaton makes and Grundig makes and CC Crane makes and Texan makes. All them radios are freaking garbage. You won't be happy with them. You won't find anything. It'll sound like crap and you'll be very disappointed. Buy an older generation radio that's analog, like these. Make sure it's mint. Buy it. Put fresh batteries in it. And then most of them have an external antenna hookup. You probably don't really need it. You could probably get away with your antenna, but if you wanted to, you can plug an external antenna in, like this Sony here has an external antenna. So you got a ground here and the antenna here. And you put out 100-foot wire out in your yard. I'm going to do a video on that one of these days here. Long wire antenna, they call it. It's about the best there is for shortwave. Just a long piece of solid copper wire. You want to run it through a window bypass and a ground rod. We'll talk about that at another time. But for now, you can use your antenna. And sometimes they got external antenna jacks. This one here, this Real Tone's got a headphone jack, a distance, and a local jack. And no external antenna jack, which is odd. This one has an ear jack and an external antenna jack. That's pretty cool for a lesser, inexpensive radio. Okay, so we'll talk about that at a later date. So, don't buy these new shortwave radios. Go on eBay and find yourself a quality shortwave radio. When you think you got one you like, go online, do some research on it, and then buy that radio and get it set up somewhere in your house where you can enjoy it. But I work on a lot of shortwave radios. I fix a lot of shortwave radios. When we get up to about 100 subscribers, maybe 150 subscribers, I'm going to have a raffle, and I'm going to raffle off one of these shortwave radios. Everybody will just give me their name. Don't need an address or anything like that. Put a name in. I'm going to put everybody's name in a hat. I'm going to draw it out, and whoever wins that radio, no matter where they are in the world, I'm going to ship it to them for free. So it's going to be a radio that I restore. Maybe it'll be this Sony or whatever, but I'm going to definitely do a raffle in the future, and 100% free and 100% delivered to my viewers, which are important to me. So thank you very much for watching Pine Tree State Restoration, and we'll see you soon.